A woman was cooking in her kitchen when she suddenly heard strange noises coming from the sink pipe. When her husband Juan returned home, he asked why she hadn't prepared the food. The woman told him about the strange sounds. Juan checked himself but didn't hear anything. However, his wife insisted that she had heard people whispering, saying they were going to kill her. Juan assumed that the noise was due to repairs in their neighbor's house. He told his wife not to overthink and to rest. But later that night, when his wife went to the bathroom, Juan heard knocking from the other side of the wall. Who would be knocking on the wall at 5 a.m.? Annoyed, Juan told his neighbor to stop, but as soon as he tried to sleep again, the same noise returned. Frustrated, he went to Walter, his neighbor's house, and rang the doorbell. Someone opened the door, but no one spoke. This puzzled Juan, and he returned home. That's when he realized the actual noise was coming from his own bathroom. When he entered, he saw his wife thrashing around, colliding with the walls as if she were possessed. Juan desperately tried to stop her, but she kept hitting the walls uncontrollably. A little later, 3 people came to meet Juan, a forensic expert, a paranormal investigator, and a female professor. They clarified that they did not believe Juan had killed his wife. Instead, they wanted to understand if anything strange had happened recently. After thinking for a while, Juan mentioned that his neighbor Walter had been acting very oddly in the past few days, making strange noises at night. Hearing this, the professor was shocked. It turned out that Walter had contacted her a few days earlier, and he had said that strange incidents were happening in his house as well. A few days ago, Walter had started feeling that there was some invisible force in his home. This had been going on for months. He called the professor, but at that time an assistant answered the phone and told him to call again the next day. Whenever Walter returned home, he always felt like there was something under his bed, but whenever he looked, he found nothing. Thinking about it constantly kept him awake, and he couldn't sleep without sleeping pills. One night while he was sleeping, his bed suddenly started shaking. Terrified, he peeked underneath, but there was nothing there. However, as soon as he lay back down, a shadow appeared right in front of him. At that moment, the room's light went out. When he tried to press the switch, nothing happened. He remembered that there was a plug under the bed. As soon as he inserted the cord into the plug, a strange shadow suddenly ran out of the room. Out of fear, Walter hid under his blanket and started praying to God. The next morning when he woke up, the entire house was in complete disarray. He immediately called the professor and told him that now the shadow wasn't just moving things, but was appearing in front of him as well. But the professor's assistant refused to help him again because Walter had no solid proof. In the evening, Hun visited Walter's house and asked him about knocking on the wall. Walter made an excuse that he was repairing his house, but that night, Walter decided he needed to gather evidence. He bought a camera and set it up in his room in a way that it could record the events happening at night. As soon as Walter fell asleep, a strange noise woke him up. Slowly, he peeked underneath the bed. Just then, his recording camera suddenly fell to the ground. As soon as he looked toward the window, he saw a strange shadow. Terrified, he immediately turned on the light, but the shadow disappeared. He picked up his camera and began watching the recorded footage. In it, he saw that while he was sleeping, a terrifying figure was staring at him. Then slowly, it moved into the wardrobe, perhaps causing the camera to fall in the process. Shocked, Walter glanced toward the wardrobe. He was extremely frightened, but gathering his courage, he stepped forward and opened the wardrobe door. Inside, he only found his old clothes hanging, but when he replayed the video and rewound it a little, he realized that the strange shadow had actually emerged from under the bed. Suddenly, the wardrobe door opened on its own, and the ghostly figure was inside. Fearfully, Walter looked into the wardrobe and, in the reflection of his own gun, he saw that same shadow. He was about to pick up the gun when, all of a sudden, some invisible force slammed him to the ground. Then everything went silent. The next morning, a child accidentally wandered near Walter's house while playing football. He had only come inside to get some water, but Walter suddenly became furious and told the boy to leave immediately. Frightened, the child was about to run away when just then, a speeding bus hit him. Hearing the loud crash, Juan rushed outside and saw that the child was Alicia's son, his neighbor. He began calling out Alicia loudly. A while later, the police arrived and started investigating. The blood on the road was cleaned up and washed away, a detail that would later prove to be important. After the child's funeral, a question lingered in Juan's mind. He hadn't seen his neighbor Walter for several days. On the other hand, forensic expert Yano received a call from the police requesting his help in a mysterious case. When he arrived at the scene, he found that the woman who had reported the incident was none other than Alicia, whose son had been hit by a bus a few days earlier. Alicia told the police that she had heard strange noises outside her door, and when she looked outside, she saw unusual footprints in the shadow of a small child. Jono was not surprised by this and believed that it was not a supernatural occurrence, but rather Alicia's imagination. He suspected that Alicia was unable to cope with her son's death and might have even dug up his body from the grave herself. As Jano and the police were discussing the situation, a glass of milk placed on the table suddenly fell on its own. This made Jano pause for a moment. He suggested that the child's body should be reburied immediately and that this incident should not be recorded in the police report. This was because the officer in charge, Fuse, was Alicia's ex-boyfriend. If it became known that Alicia had exhumed her son's body, she would be sent to a mental hospital. To avoid this, Jano advised Fuse to write in the report that the movement of the corpse was due to post-mortem muscle contractions. He also recommended giving Alicia some medication to help her stay calm. As Jano stepped out of the house, he noticed a woman standing across the street taking pictures of the incident. She looked familiar, so he approached her to talk. During their conversation, he realized that she was none other than Professor Albert, a researcher of supernatural phenomena. Jano asked her what she was doing there. Albeck said that he had heard about the strange incidents happening in the area and had come to understand them. He also found out that when he rang the doorbell of this house, someone opened the door but no one spoke from inside. Jano found all this very strange. He told Professor Albert that if she was researching paranormal events, she should join him in investigating this case. After this, Jano and Professor Albert sat in the drawing room and began discussing the matter. Jano mentioned that he had been working as a forensic expert for the past 15 years, but he had never seen such a mysterious case before. Although he had encountered several paranormal incidents in his life, he believed that even if these events were real, they should not be unnecessarily sensationalized. Instead, it was better to resolve them peacefully. Professor Albert completely agreed with him. Just then, a small child, searching for his toy, unknowingly passed through the wall and entered the room. By mistake, he saw the corpse placed in the room. As soon as his eyes fell on the dead body, its head suddenly turned towards him. On the other hand, when forensic expert Jano was shown an old photograph, he dismissed it as mere coincidence. However, Professor Albert noticed a connection in it. She believed that there was definitely a deep link between these three mysterious incidents. Suddenly, a loud scream of a child was heard from outside. When Albert looked toward the door, she found it open. She immediately realized that someone had entered. To be cautious, they placed the corpse inside a fridge, but they were unaware that the entire incident had been recorded on the child's camera. After this, Jano met police officer Fuse, and both decided that while the deceased mother was asleep, they would dispose of the body. But as soon as they started moving the corpse, the refrigerator suddenly began to shake as if someone inside was trying to open it. After this incident, Professor Albrecht convinced Fuse to cooperate. Then, by connecting the events chronologically, they discovered that these three cases had some deep connection. The police had granted them permission to investigate, but they also needed Hu Wan's written consent since part of the investigation had to take place inside his house. Wan had already given his approval. Now, Fuse and Rosentalk went to Alicia's house with Albrecht. However, Alicia had not paid her electricity bill for a long time, and the power had been cut off. Meanwhile, the forensic team went to the deceased child's house, which was directly opposite Walter's home. On the other hand, Professor Alicia set up Albrecht's scientific instruments to detect the paranormal activities happening there. Due to the power outage in Alicia's house, Fuse asked the professor if they should restore the electricity, but Rosentalk refused. He believed that spirits were more active in the dark, and to uncover the truth behind this case, darkness was necessary. Strange events began to occur. When Fuse and Rosentalk reached the kitchen, they noticed that some utensils were mysteriously stuck to the top of the cupboard. As Rosentalk tried to touch one of them, a knife suddenly lifted into the air and inflicted a deep wound on his hand. As Fuse stepped forward to help, Rosentalk noticed something even more sinister. Something hidden inside the cupboard was feeding on his blood. Seeing this, Fuse immediately pulled out his gun, but Rosentalk stopped him from firing and started pulling the knife out of his own wound. After that, Funes took Rosentalk to a safe place. As Rosentalk was cleaning his wound, Funes realized that all the objects in the room were trembling. He wasn't surprised because he had already understood that these spirits were attracted to blood. Rosentalk immediately told him to clean the room. Meanwhile, Jano received a call from Funes. Funes said that he couldn't stay there any longer because he had seen something he couldn't explain. He also mentioned that he had a heart condition and couldn't endure this much stress. Jano saw something strange in his room's mirror. It seemed like someone was standing near his bed, but the figure was only visible in the mirror. Suddenly, the ghostly figure started emerging from the mirror, and at that moment, the call got disconnected. On the other hand, Professor Albert also sensed something unusual. He saw a crack appearing on the wall. Meanwhile, Funes found Rosentalk and told him that he wanted to leave this place immediately. But just then, Rosentalk discovered a new clue and asked Funes to pay attention to it. When they looked under the bed, they didn't find anything unusual. But as soon as they turned to the other side, they were stunned by the sight before them. The entire room was filled with bizarre creatures. Rosentalk believed that darkness and light existed together at the same point in time and space. One just needed the right perspective to see them. Funes struggled to keep himself composed after witnessing this sight and immediately ran out of the house. But then he realized that he should take Rosentalk with him. When Funes reached the house where Jano was, he called out several times, but Jano did not respond. Just then, Ness's eyes suddenly fell on the cupboard, where there was a fresh blood stain in the shape of a hand. Gathering his courage, he opened the cupboard, but inside there were only some utensils and clothes. At that moment, he remembered Rosentalk's words, "If you change your perspective, the truth will appear differently." As Funes moved toward the edge of the cupboard, a loud explosion-like sound came from inside. Summoning his courage, he opened the door, and what he saw left him stunned. Inside the cupboard was none other than Jano, but judging by Jano's condition, it was clear that he was no longer alive. Meanwhile, Professor Elbrake was carefully examining the cracks in the wall when she discovered a man hiding there. This man was none other than Walter, who had been missing for a long time. Just then, Funes arrived and explained that something terrible had happened to Albro. He warned her not to believe anything happening that night because all these events were being influenced by a supernatural force. Brake then contacted Rosentalk and said that the situation was now out of control and the investigation should be stopped immediately. But Rosentalk did not respond. The mystery was finally revealed when Brake explained that these ghostly entities were spreading through water. The child who had met with an accident had drunk water from that very house. When the police cleaned the accident site, they unknowingly drained the water into the sewers. This was why Juan's wife had started hearing strange noises in the kitchen. Just as Funes and Albrecht were observing the cracks, a hand suddenly emerged from within, grabbing Elbrus. The sight was so terrifying that Elbrus's heart began pounding violently, and he suffered a heart attack. At that moment, a demonic figure started emerging from the wall. On the other hand, when Rosentalk was reviewing his camera recordings, the wardrobe behind him suddenly opened on its own. Seeing this, he was just as terrified as Elbrake. However, Funes somehow managed to survive this horrifying night. When Funes regained consciousness, he saw that all the furniture in the room was moving on its own. Just then, someone arrived. It was none other than Alicia. Funes pleaded for Alicia's help, but she was furious at him because she blamed him for harming her child. Alicia had seen a video recorded on the child's mobile, which showed Funes hiding a corpse. But after Funes repeatedly begged her, Alicia softened. After all, they used to be in a relationship. As Funes was about to get into the car, he suddenly saw the child's corpse, which shocked him, making him feel that Alicia had completely lost her mind. He immediately took another car and set off for the hospital. However, Professor Alberter's presence scared Funes even more, prompting him to speed up the car. But after driving some distance, he stopped his car by the roadside and used his radio transmitter to call his friend. Meanwhile, Alicia had reached the police station and filed a missing complaint for her child. The police had no other option, so they shared Funes' location with Alicia. They assumed that Funes was still investigating those houses, so they went there. But upon arrival, they found that Funes' car was not there. When Funes heard this, he immediately used his transmitter to warn his colleagues to leave the place at once. But then, their colleagues responded. "We saw a forensic officer standing outside the house in a strange manner." Funes ordered his teammates to ignore it and leave immediately. However, after thinking for a while, Nez decided that he had to go back. As soon as he arrived, he took out 2 cans of petrol from the trunk of his car. His intention was to burn down the cursed house so that these mysterious forces could be eradicated forever. As soon as he reached the drawing room, he saw that Nia Alicia had hanged herself. This sight shocked him deeply, but he composed himself and sprinkled petrol throughout the house. When he struck a matchstick, it kept going out repeatedly. Suddenly, he realized that Jano was standing nearby, blowing out the matchstick every time. This scene terrified Funes to his core. Without wasting time, he fired his revolver at the petrol, setting the house ablaze. The flames engulfed it, and it burned fiercely. 5 years later, 3 strangers came to meet Juan. They asked him if he knew forensic expert Albrecht and the 2 professors. Juan nodded in agreement, but couldn't remember their names correctly. Then one of them informed him that during an investigation, Juan had suddenly seen someone peeking through the window, but when the others turned around, there was nothing there. After that, Juan picked up a picture and revealed that it was a photograph of one Professor Rosenthal. Then, pointing toward the door, he said, his face was disfigured due to burns. As they all looked towards the door, a nearby chair suddenly started moving, and then swiftly flew into the air toward them. This is where the story ends, but the mystery remains. So tell me your thoughts in the comments section.